From ITV, we have Stu Jones, and Stuart, he is the head of product at ITV Hub. He has over 20 years of experience building products and established strategy for different companies across a wide range of industry, on working in online product development. So with that, I will hand over to you, Stu.
Hey Espen, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great, good start. Hi everyone. I'm actually in the office today for only the second time in 18 months. So if you can hear people talking in the background, that's why. I haven't got a full house. Okay, let me share my screen and I'll get going. Okay. Sorry, Espen, just a delay. Let's try that again. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Stu Jones. I'm the head of product for ITV Hub and Hub Plus in the UK. And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you an overview around the last 2.5 years of what we've been working on at ITV and really talk about 3 distinct phases. But first of all, I wanted to give you an oversight as to what ITV Hub is. I'm aware that some of you might not be aware of what we do over here. So we launched back in 2008 and we are an online advertising video on demand service. We're predominantly available in the UK and we give access to simulcast ITV content. So for the last 12 years or so, what we've really been trying to do is get people who've missed content on linear station to watch the following day or within a 30-day window. We are moving away from that, and it's something I'll touch about later on in this presentation. But really what we are is a catch-up service predominantly at the moment based in the UK, and there's a $3.99 offer we make, which is if you pay that amount of money, you can get ad-free services, so you can watch catch-up content without the ads. Some top-level figures, so we've got 30 million registered users. A third of the UK population comes to the ITV Hub every year and consumes some form of content. We're available on 30 different types of platforms, and to round off the 30 trends, we have been downloaded over 30 million times. What I'm going to talk about here now then is what we've been doing over the last couple of years. So we really started a research and insight piece about 2.5 years ago. And what we determined from that was that the experience we were seeing on our pages didn't really help us in any way. We weren't seen as a modern digital platform. Our key metrics weren't really being helped in any way by the experience that we were offering across different platforms. And so what we decided to do was take a design-led process to address some of the consumer needs. The conversation has really changed and moved on in the last 2.5 years. And so what we were originally expecting to be really almost like a coat of paint on top of what we've been working on turned into something quite different. And I'm going to talk about that in 3 distinct stages. So firstly is the redesign, where I'll talk about aesthetic and user journey. I'll talk about the replatforming process that we've been through from an engineering capacity, and then talk about how we've had to repurpose on the way. As I mentioned before, with the redesign, we were trying to create that modern digital feel. And so we needed to really make sure that we could accommodate our new brand across all of our different platforms. And so this is what we were starting from. Again, it was a very undynamic, a very static page. And we really wanted to try and bring to life what we had on, which was great content. We had great imagery, and we had the depth of content that we weren't really showing through this homepage. So what we have now rolled out across several of our platforms is a much more enriched experience, and there's some key differentiators. Obviously, we've inverted the color. We also introduced a notion of different components. So we've got obviously the big hero image there. We've got a second hero image as well now, and a third, but we've also introduced components such as featured. So we're trying to make standout individual elements on the homepage to really grab the consumer attention. The biggest change that we introduced was really horizontal scroll. So the ability to be able to really scroll through content. And what this really gave us was much more of a depth. Originally, if I just go back a page, actually, we were looking at around 26 pieces of content on this homepage, which is barely anything compared to our back catalogue. And now we've got in excess of 126 with just the redesigned components and the ability to be able to scroll through different types of genres as well. The idea of doing a redesign was relatively simplistic. What we had to try and accommodate, though, was could our platform accommodate this experience? And so the engineering teams looked at what we were proposing to do and said, actually, you know what, there could be an aspect of just sort of coating this to make it look different. But the reality is that you're going to need to really accommodate the functionality, and we're going to have to try and look at rebuilding what we've already currently got. So it was an opportunity to build out for the future. It was an opportunity to accommodate the likes of tracking, compliance, and verification that we didn't previously have. And so what, again, we did was we moved from what we termed internally as really a brick. It was very static. It was there was no dynamic elements. The APIs weren't particularly well understood. And so we were kind of being driven by legacy. And what we wanted to do was really break this into more modular components. And the modularization of this really allowed us then to start building out experiences as opposed to building out pages. Another big engineering move was really to go from our existing technology and to move to React. It standardized what we were doing from an engineering perspective across the board. It allowed us to build shared components, and it really allowed us to start talking again in a way which we weren't able to do before, which was much more about dynamic content. Just moving forward to talk about atomic design. So one aspect we wanted to really address at the start of this was how can we have a shared communication and a shared language between ourselves and engineering teams? And when I say ourselves, I'm talking more about the consumer experience side. And so what we settled on was the notion of atomic design. And it's a practiced and a kind of well-documented state in which you can share and collaborate on, both from a kind of user experience and a product side, but with engineering teams as well. And the idea is really that you normalize two disciplines, and the normalization comes from a commonly shared language. So previously we were talking about pages as the kind of de facto, we want this page to be built, but we'd moved to a world where it was much more about the modular design and really breaking things down into its individual component. Now, if you take a component like a shelf or a rail or a horizontal scroll, each of those is really comprised of various different organisms and molecules and atoms. So for example, an atom could be a button. A molecule could be the text that sits on top of that atom. So all of a sudden you've got the molecule, two atoms together, forming this experience. And what you can then do is build together these experiences that create templates. And this language really helped us to talk about what we wanted to build for the future, as opposed just to replicate what we've currently already got. So that was an important discipline that we introduced as we went through this. Now, as I'm sure you're all aware, 2.5 years is a long time in the video on demand space. And one thing we couldn't do was ignore the changes of the business, ignore the changes of the consumer in this time. And so what we wanted to be able to do was really be flexible when it came down to strategy. And so the business decided that we wanted to really shift away from a catch-up service being our de facto brand for ITV Hub to being much more about a discovery service. In real terms, this means rather than a consumer thinking, I missed that piece of content, therefore I'll go to the hub to watch it, thinking of the hub as a destination to go and discover content. So you're sat at home on a Saturday night. We wanted people to think about the ITV Hub in terms of, I'm going to go to this platform to try and find something to consume and watch. And this is a big shift because it meant a significant amount of content being dropped on us in a very short amount of time. And so really then to try and repurpose the hub, rather than go back to the drawing board and redesign exactly what we've been doing for the last 18 months or so, was to really take advantage of trying to use metadata tagging and imagery to convey a different user story. And that's something that was ongoing at the moment. So really to just sort of recap on those last 3 disciplines before I talk about measures and future foundations, the redesign was all about improving the user journey, the modernized aesthetic, and using atomic design as a centralized language. The replatform was around moving to React. It was about building richer APIs. And something I've not really talked about is the flexibility of a content management tool. So we wanted to give editors the ability to be able to make decisions rather than that have to be a conversation with an engineer. And so we've been trying to not just educate internally on what this can actually mean, but also to build out the functionality to give to editors who are then able to go and make decisions themselves. All this coupled in with our programmatic look at personalization. So really trying to take the personalized aspects of the hub and using the likes of machine learning and collaborative filtering to augment the experience alongside editorial content as well. And finally, the repurpose. So we wanted to be seen as that discovery destination and to accommodate content. Finally, 2 quick slides on measure and foundation. To measure the success of this, what we didn't want to do was just rely heavily on the quantitative measure. If we did that, we'd be beholden to content and the success of content. So what's really important for us and for all of us in the VOD space is to try and find those metrics that potentially sit outside of the popularity of content consumption and really see if you are making a tangible difference to your experience. So the qualitative measures of customer research, so revisit back again those people who didn't perceive us as being a modern digital platform, have they changed their opinion? But then using the likes of the Net Promoter Score to really say, is this something that you would refer to somebody? Do you see this as a destination for discovery? So these are the top level questions that we are trying to ask people. And we were also obviously taking signals from the likes of our app review ratings. They were already very good. So to actually shift to a modern digital platform in light of them being very good was something that we needed to be very careful that we weren't going to be a detriment and damage that experience. And you might ask, why did we change the experience if it was already very good? We were thinking about the future and the long-term brand representation. On that topic as well, it wasn't just the external customer, it was the internal customer. The brand perception of the hub internally at ITV is very important. If people can see us as being a best-in-class, world-class service, there's more likelihood we'll get additional content. They'll see us as a prime destination to showcase new content. And that's something that we needed to make sure that people and stakeholders internally were enamored with the application that we were building. So there's another key measure of success there as well. And finally, the maintenance of success and trying to continue on with this journey. What we did was, I won't go through this side in too much great detail, but the redesign was a standalone project at ITV. It had a standalone team. What we wanted to try and do was obviously disseminate this into cross-functional user experience teams. So we wanted to move away from outputs, and outputs being the likes of build the new version of the hub, to more outcome-driven measures, increase consumption, increase the breadth of content or breadth of consumption. These are the measures that we wanted to try and increase. You know, we've got a big e-commerce model with with Hub Plus. We wanted to make sure that we really got in the metrics and objectives inside of these cross-functional teams so they could use the foundation of the rebuild to really go after the objectives they were trying to do. So it's not just about project, it's about trying to shift away from output and make sure that you kind of focus on the outcome as well that you want to go through. And that's everything from me. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Stu. That's really interesting, and to see what you have put together there. And unfortunately, we won't have time for questions now. We are running out of time, but thank you so much for joining.